I have the time as 10 a.m. So I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us for part two of this webinar series, Reimagining the Ride, Brownfields and Active Transportation. As a reminder to folks, this is part two of the webinar series. If you were not able to attend the first webinar, you can find that recording on the same place that you went and registered, as well as the first webinar's presentation slides. If you haven't watched that recording already, highly recommend it. But with that, we will get started. Okay. All right, so just some technical notes. I know kind of we're all used to Zoom at this point, but if for whatever reason you have any issues, feel free to dial the phone number here, 785-200-7005, or send us an email to chsr@ksu.edu, and we'll try and help you get back on. And then if for whatever reason you're just not able to get back on, this webinar is also being recorded and will be uploaded to the registration link later. So you'll be able to watch it. And then again, some basic Zoom etiquettes, everyone should be muted and their video be off, but if for whatever reason you see you're not on mute, just go ahead and hit that. And then if you want to everyone gets sent a certificate for participating. Be sure to change your name on Zoom to get that name on your certificate, essentially. And then in the chat, feel free to drop any questions as we go along. We really encourage you guys to ask questions and engage with us as best you can, since we're on mute right now. All right, and then today's speakers. I'm Leslie Etzel. I'm the Assistant Director for EPA Region 6 at KSU TAB, and also joining me today is Ryan Hale, the founder and CEO of Laneshift, one of our TAB partners. And then, so today's agenda, since I know there are some people joining today for the first time on this webinar and weren't able to participate last time, we're going to do, again, just a reintroduction of KSU TAB, our regional coordinators, and we're also going to do that for Laneshift, kind of reintroduce who they are, what they do. And then, so for KSU TAB's portion of the webinar, we're just going to go through the 3 types of assistance that we provide. So education outreach, capacity building, and one-on-one assistance. And I'll kind of walk you through some examples of each of these. And then I'll turn it over to Ryan, who's going to talk about building culture and infrastructure, building, a connected community. And then Ryan's also going to talk about the Active Transportation Academy and the Jumpstart program, as well as the call for applicants for Jumpstart. And then we'll do some question and answers. Okay, so KSU TAB, who we are and what we do. So TAB is a national program funded by EPA and provides free services to communities. We kind of think of it as like filling in the gaps where the Brownfields, General Brownfields program can't. KSU TAB in particular serves 21 different states across EPA's region 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then there are other TAB providers throughout the country. So this map will kind of show that to you. And we're going to get this whole webinar, this whole first half of the webinar is about all the things that we offer. So I'll get into more detail about that shortly. And then your regional TAB coordinators. So for EPA Region 5, these would be the folks you're going to reach out to for assistance. So moving left to right, we have Beth, Roxanne, and Kristen. In EPA Region 6, you have Scott Nightingale and myself. Region 7, you'll have Maggie, Jacob, and Kristen. And then in Region 8, you also have Maggie and Kate Lucas. So all of our contact information is on our website. Feel free to email or call us to get in touch and see how we can assist you. So with that, I will let Ryan introduce Laneshift and who they are and what they do.
Thanks, Leslie, and thanks to everyone for joining. I don't know exactly where you're located, but I know for us here in Northwest Arkansas, we're navigating through about 6 to 8 inches of snow, and for us, that's quite a bit. And so schools are shut down, and so actually it may be a good time to for you to tune into a webinar if you're working remote or from home as well. So. But as Leslie mentioned, a little bit about us. We're a planning and design firm that's focused on active transportation, and really what that is about creating places and spaces for people to walk, bike, roll, or run. Kind of 3 areas that we focus on is planning, and so working on active transportation plans, bike and ped plans, and then project-specific planning, and then also some strategic planning for how to move some of these initiatives forward within your community. Also the design side, and so really a lot of times what we find is when we're able to visualize a corridor or we're able to visualize a solution, that's really helpful to move the public sentiment forward around a project. And so we have a great capability in the 3D design to be able to help communities kind of envision, if you will, a particular corridor and what it might look like once it's revitalized to include active transportation. And then finally, where we spend a lot of our time and a lot of our energy is around professional development. I have a background in sports. I had an opportunity to play professional football earlier in my career. I thought I was going to be a teacher and a coach and coach high school or maybe college football. Life kind of took us in a different direction. And so what we do now is we coach professionals on how to create connected communities. So you'll have an opportunity to learn more about the Active Transportation Academy and how that might be a fit for you, or how that might be a fit for people in your communities or on your staff. There's a scholarship program that we'll talk about that we partner with KSU TAB on. We also leave our market and we go into places like New York City and Austin and are in the early stages of planning an international trip to give professionals the opportunity to go experience infrastructure firsthand, infrastructure and culture firsthand in another community. And then we've also, we bring people to Northwest Arkansas for what we call benchmarking tours, groups or teams that want to come here and learn together. So planning, design, and professional development, that's a quick overview of Laneshift. Our team, I think we're a small but scrappy team. And on the call today, we have, I think Jacob Truman's with us. He's our lead designer, but Jocelyn handles our professional engineering. Marina Kajubin handles all of our project coordination, project management. And then I help provide vision and leadership and facilitation for our programs. And then Jacob handles our design.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, so let's get into the various resources and assistance that KSU TAB can provide y'all. So as mentioned earlier, all of our services are provided for free. The services are either going to be provided by KSU TAB's staff directly, or we might bring in partners such as Laneshift based on kind of your needs. There's 3 main categories of our services. So outreach and education, capacity building, and one-on-one assistance. There's no formal application process at all to request our assistance. Just simply send us an email or call us, and we can explore the various ways that we can help you. And so we're going to go through each of these three different categories, explain sort of what types of resources and services fall under each category, and then kind of look at some examples. So for outreach and education, we host workshops and webinars. So a webinar would be similar to this right now that we're hosting. We'll do presentations, Laneshift's Active Transportation Academy. We also partner with Rocky Mountain Institute to do Brownfields Academy, and then we have a resource database. For anyone who looks back on these slides later, all of the links to these kind of outreach and education items, you can click on any of them and I'll take you to our website to kind of explore these in depth. But we're going to go through each of these right now. So the workshops and webinars, those are on our events webpage. You can look at past workshops and webinars and future ones. Generally webinars are recorded, so you can look at those recordings. Workshops, if they're in person, we're not usually recording those, but we do upload all of the slide materials to them, so you can look through that. And sometimes these are things that we're going to instigate and put on, but we also can partner with you for this. So if you're like, hey, I want a workshop in my community, generally about brownfields, but maybe I want to workshop on just redevelopment in general. That's something we can certainly do. Something we've been doing in Region 6 is doing kind of a shorter day, like 9:30 to 3:30, where the first portion of the morning will focus on just brownfields, federal, state, and local brownfields programs. And then in the afternoon, it's kind of open to who you would want to speak, maybe some local resources like a Main Street program. We can invite HUD if you have housing kind of issues, all sorts of things like that. So if you want a workshop, just reach out and we can start exploring that in your area. And then here are just some photos of some workshops that we've done lately. Okay, and then presentations. So workshops are usually going to be like half day to a full day sort of thing. Presentations, we can just come and do a quick, 30-minute, hour-long. I mean, we can even do shorter presentations. And we can do this for city officials, elected leaders, public, and we can do this in a variety of different formats. So we're happy to speak at like a town hall or a public meeting. We can come to maybe a board meeting, maybe a focus group that you've got going on for redevelopment. Basically, whatever you need, just reach out, and we can explore how we can kind of present that information to whatever group you want to present to. And then Ryan's going to talk about this more in the second half of this webinar, but we do offer scholarships for the Laneshift's Active Transportation Academy. I've been through that academy twice now, and it's a really great experience. So that is something we offer assistance with. Another kind of workshop that we help with is this is the Brownfields Academy. It's put on by Rocky Mountain Institute, one of our partners. It is a 5-part workshop that takes you through, redeveloping brownfield sites into bright fields, so some sort of energy reuse of the property. Right now, the last academy was this past fall. And I believe all of the recordings of those workshops and the material are on our events page. So you can check that out if that's something you're interested in. And then our resource database, or more library, I guess. But there's tons of different resources on here. So for example, here we have kind of a printout of the health effects of heavy metals. We put up the MARC grant guidelines every year, but you can also see past MARC grant guidelines. There are a lot of examples of the sample successful grant applications, how to establish a tribal response program, things to consider when looking at environmental assessments and cleanups, all sorts of resources. So highly recommend that you check those out. Okay, so capacity building, we're going to go through each of these, but we have a couple different e-tools that are available. And then a community benefits calculator, some various templates, and then of course a big thing that we do is our MARC grant reviews. So the Brownfield inventory tool, so this actually just got a real nice makeover and was launched last week. There was a webinar about the new release last week, and that recording and all the material is on our website as well. So highly recommend if you're interested in BIT and weren't able to attend that to check it out. But essentially, this is going to be an online tool. It's free. It's completely private. Even KSU TAB staff can't see it. But you can create an inventory of all the different sites that you want to work on. You don't have to just use it for brownfield sites. You can use it however you want. But you can set up different programs. You can map out all your different sites. And then you can kind of track it throughout the brownfields process. You can also, if you already have a grant or if you get a grant, you can add in the funding source in there. You can track how much you spent on a particular site. You can upload documents and images. It's really kind of a great comprehensive tool. I do not believe right now the new release, I don't think we've launched the Acres interface yet, but that is something that will be a part of the tool eventually where you can directly report to EPA Acres about your particular sites. So Tab EZ, this is a grant writing software. Again, just like BIT, it's free to use. It's private. I didn't mention with BIT, but this as well, you can add collaborators and kind of give different permissions as to what they can do. There are throughout Tab EZ for the different ranking criterias. There's helpful hints that'll kind of walk you through different things to consider while writing your grant. Lots of really great links to various resources. The really nice thing about Tab EZ is so when EPA releases their grant guidelines, the ranking criteria, or essentially like I consider that like the prompt, is separate on totally different pages and everything than your evaluation criteria. So like what you're actually going to be evaluated on. But Tab EZ puts them side by side, like right next to each other, so you can really understand everything all at once. And it's pretty helpful in that way. Okay, so the platform for exploring environmental records, also referred to as PEER. This can be used in a variety of different ways, such as helping identify brownfield sites. It should be noted that this is not all fully inclusive. It might be missing sites that have asbestos or lead-based paint. But it can give you a general idea of if a site's going to be brownfields. Basically, is there an environmental record with it? Each site is ranked, and I believe a ranking of 4 or 5 indicates that there was an actual release at the site. So that can help you understand, like, if there is a release, you're definitely going to have to do additional assessments. It's a fun thing to kind of just explore and see what's in your community while you're prioritizing your sites. The community benefits calculator. So this basically, I believe right now it's in the form of an Excel file, but it'll walk you through some various questions about your potential brownfields redevelopment. It'll help you understand if the redevelopment is beneficial to your community, what kind of financing you're looking at. So here we can kind of see in this example, there's a community risk score, a community benefit score, and then like that economic benefit to your community. And this is free, and I believe right now, if you request it, we'll just email it to you. So it kind of helps you do this on your own. I know some folks can, you can pay a company a lot of money to do this for you, but you can do this on your own. The RFP and RFQ templates that we have. So if you're maybe trying to solicit an environmental professional to carry out your brownfields work, you can email us and we'll send you this template that you'll kind of fill in the yellow marked areas. Once you've got it filled out, if you want us to review it, we can review it, provide you, additional things to think about before you make it public. We'll also provide you the EPA's guidelines for competitively procuring a contractor. So that can be really helpful for especially, smaller communities that don't do this as often. And then one of our big things that we offer every year is MARC grant reviews. So MARC, if you're not familiar, stands for Multi-Purpose Assessment, Revolving Loan Fund, and Cleanup. So these are the Brownfields competitive grants that the guidelines are released every year in the fall. They're very, very competitive, but we can offer review of those grants. You can technically request a review of the grant any time of the year, but generally people are requesting it after the guidelines have come out and they've written and tailored their grant to those guidelines. Review time usually takes between like 3 to 4 days, business days. And then generally every year we'll assign one KSU staff member to kind of be the person who gets all the submittals. So be on the lookout in the fall if you are looking to get a grant review for who to send that to, and then they'll assign it out to the various KSU staff members and other folks who we have review this. Okay, and then so the last category is one-on-one assistance. The list I have here is not all encompassing. I really want to make that clear. If there is assistance that you need in your community in terms of brownfields redevelopment and it's not on here, that's totally fine. Just reach out and ask us and we can explore how we can help you with that. This is just generally the common things we help communities with. So identifying and prioritizing sites. Our assistance in this can look a bunch of different ways. So, one of them is, we have the Brownfields inventory tool, that online data management tool. So you can use that. We can, help you put on a meeting where, maybe we're printing out maps of your community or an area you want to focus on, and you're getting members of the public to come in and say, hey, like, this site, I pass it every day, it's vacant, it's an eyesore, like, is this a Brownfields? And, we can put a sticker on it and then do some research afterwards of, maybe who owns it? How do you bring it into your Brownfields program? We can also coordinate a walking tour of your community to help you identify Brownfields. We also do, sometimes we'll call them windshield tours, where call us up and we'll just go drive around your town with you and, take photos and notes of various vacant properties, and then come back and do a little bit of, information digging on the computer to see, whether or not there's a responsible party, whether or not it will qualify for Brownfields funding. So it can look a lot of different ways, and it's just whatever you think would work best for your community. So this is one example of where we kind of went further than that, and we had one of our partners look at an entire kind of neighborhood area and identify all these different parcels and figure out which ones are brownfields and which are not. So all of the kind of like pink and purple little lots are possible to definite brownfields, and then the like blue images are, unlikely brownfield sites. So that's something that we also are able to provide. So planning and visioning, again, this is going to look however you want it to look like. We're there to maybe provide you like, hey, this is what we did in this community and it worked really well, but you know your community best and what's going to work. But so this can be for maybe an entire corridor. It can be for one particular site, but we can just get community members all together. We've learned that providing food is incredibly helpful for that. But there's a lot of different unique and interesting ways. I know they've hosted some community visioning meetings in like a brewery. In this center image, this was done at a farmer's market, and they just had a table at the farmer's market where they had these pieces of paper for people to fill out. This was for one particular site, but they wanted to know what would you like this site to be turned into and why. So the planning and visioning, again, is going to be really tailored to your community and what you think would work best. But we're happy to help you coordinate all of that and provide, what we've experienced works really well. So market analysis, let's say you have maybe a area of town or a particular property and you want to know what would the market actually support as a redevelopment of this site. So this is an example of a small corridor, and they wanted to know like what kind of commercial real estate could be supported in that area. And so we had one of our partners go through and kind of list out the various different things that could be possible. And another thing, this is done with our partners, same with the market analysis generally. Pro formas, you could look at maybe, again, one particular site or an area. What are some possible redevelopment scenarios? And you can kind of look through, all right, based off of how much it might cost to clean up, and then construct based on that redevelopment. all the different maybe local and state funding that might be available. We can kind of figure out what redevelopment option is going to provide you the best return on investment. And then feasibility study, similar to a market analysis, but different. Here, like you might have a particular redevelopment in mind, like let's say you want to redevelop it into some sort of fast food. It would look at, okay, if you like, where would that redevelopment work best? So it can look at that as well. So a lot of different options in terms of, finances, figuring out what your community can support and not. And then conceptual renderings, this is done with our partners. So this is in New Orleans. This was a site that we actually had a community visioning event for, and we invited the architecture firm to come down and participate in the visioning session. And so based on all of the feedback that they heard in that visioning session, they generated what they interpreted the community to want in these renderings. And then another example of conceptual rendering, I believe this one was where we hosted a visioning session, got a lot of feedback from the community as to what they wanted this particular property to be. We kind of put it in a summary form of what are the different services that they're missing. So down here we can see that people really wanted emergency services, and some leisure activities and some shopping. And so providing all of that information to the firm who then created these renderings from that. Another thing that we've done is actually, this is also in Louisiana. This is in Franklin, Louisiana. We worked with the organization to kind of get an idea of what they wanted the site to be redeveloped into, and generated some renderings from that. And then we took those renderings, made a bunch of copies of them, and then hosted a visioning session where we provided everyone who attended a copy of this rendering, and they were able to mark up the rendering to say like how they would improve it. So for example, here there's kind of this is a center, which theoretically would have indoor bathrooms, but we have a lot of outdoor recreational activities. So they wanted to see some more bathrooms on site. They wanted a walking trail along here. And so we are now in the process of working with the community who originally requested this and going through the different feedback that we got and figuring out, what makes sense for them to incorporate, what doesn't, and then we're going to update these renderings based on that. So a lot of different ways to approach these services. And then so we have resource roadmaps, another thing that we've done, we can do internally now, but we've also done with partners. But essentially, this can look a lot of different ways, but let's say you have a particular redevelopment project, and you want to find out what are some different sources of funding that can help you throughout the entire process of redevelopment. So, we'll look at what are the different Brownfields grants available for actual assessment and cleanup, but what are maybe some tax incentives, some local and state grants for actual redevelopment that will get you through to breaking ground and opening your site for reuse. And then technical report reviews. This is something I love to do as a geologist, but let's just say for whatever reason you got an environmental report that either the consultant just didn't take the time to kind of walk you through it. Maybe you don't agree with the consultant. But I apologize for my dog barking in the background. I hope you guys can't hear that. But we can, look at it and offer our expertise as to what they're saying and whether or not we agree, or whether or not you should explore maybe some different cleanup alternative and things like that. So lastly, I'll talk quickly about our tribal tab. I think I saw a couple of tribal folks who had registered. So similar to tab, tribal tab provides free technical assistance to all federally recognized tribes, Alaska Native villages. Well, I apologize, everyone. My dogs are barking a lot. I think I've got them under control. But Tribal Tab provides free technical assistance to all federally recognized tribes, Alaska Native villages, and other tribal entities. It's a collaborative partnership between KSU, the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, and Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. They offer the same kind of technical assistance as I've kind of just spoken about, but they also incorporate another arm of, storytelling and visioning. So our tribal tab contacts are going to be Oral Salters, Jennifer Clancy, Michaela Shirley, and Cynthia Annette. If any of our tribal folks are on the call or on this webinar, I highly recommend reaching out to them. They've been doing this for years and are great, and are happy to provide you with assistance. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. And I will.
Thank you, Leslie. Your dog sounds cute. I know sometimes they're not always they're not always acting the way you need them to act when you need them to. So thanks again. It's so encouraging to see so many people kind of tuned in today on this discussion around reimagining the ride and brownfields and active transportation. And so I just appreciate it. And we hope today to really just present some ideas and concepts and give you a little bit of an opportunity to interact the best we can with a group of this size. But know that the conversation can continue. And I also just want to say we've been a partner with KSU TAB for a little over a year. And it has really just blown me away, the amount of resources, the amount of experience and expertise that they bring to the table. And often we're always, I think we're asking ourselves kind of what's the catch? So these services and resources are provided for free and are complimentary to communities. But there's really no catch. And so I just say, as some of the things that Leslie has talked about, and as you interface with some of the different staff at KSU TAB, just lean in. And chances are there's some way that they can connect you to somebody or some sort of a resource to kind of help you think through issues or opportunities within your community. So our goal today really is to dive into what it means to be a connected community. We spent about 30 minutes on the first webinar. Some of you were here for that first webinar. Some of you, this is your first one to tune into. So we're not going to be able to cover all of the material from the previous, but we'll provide just a very high level recap of some of the things that we talked about there. And then stay tuned at the end. We want to kind of announce a really special call for community applications for our Jumpstart program. So stay tuned till the end, if you will. And then we'd really love to hear your feedback, in particular on the evaluation. Many of you know how important that is, because if we're taking up an hour and a half during a webinar and it's not connecting and it's not hitting the mark, we need to know that, and we want to fix that, and we want to make sure that we can tune that up as we do this in the future. So connected communities. And Leslie, I think I've got slide control here. And as we think about connected communities, and we think about that in as it relates to brownfields, we often know that in our communities that active transportation can play an important role in that redevelopment and that revitalization of a particular parcel, a series of parcels, or a corridor. And so that's really the kind of the tie-in for why we're talking about this, is because active transportation, trails, biking, walking, plays an important role in that redevelopment of brownfields. Over the years, we've learned that connected communities really have a good balance of infrastructure and culture. And really, both of those aspects really need to be available in order to be a connected community. So in order to help us communicate this through our programs and through our projects and things like that, we developed what we call, very simply, the connected community model. This model shows us that focusing on planning, designing, and building safe, comfortable, and connected infrastructure is important, right? Safety is paramount, but also that it's comfortable and that it's connected to useful things. But we've also learned that in order to develop a connected community, we really must develop in tandem with and be as intentional about building a welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging environment for people that walk, bike, roll, or run. We used to believe in particular in the heartland and in rural America, that if we build it, they will use it. So, we go and we get a grant and we build a trail or a project or a bike lane, and we just hope that people will use it. And we've seen that this approach works really well in places like New York City, San Francisco, Portland, large metro areas where there is what we call latent demand for that. But it hasn't always panned out in smaller rural communities in rural America. We've learned that communities really must be focused on building that culture of walking and biking together and in tandem with infrastructure development to see that community buy-in and that usage increase over time. So as you can also go on, you can snap that QR code. This will give you a little bit of a deeper dive and give you access to this model. And so what I do want to say is that this model is not an exhaustive list of all the considerations that you need to think about in building a connected community. These are what we call just some critical questions as you're considering a project, you're considering a corridor, you're approaching a redevelopment or a revitalization. These are some of the critical questions that you can be asking, but there's others. And so this model really, again, just helped identify some of those critical questions that you can be asking yourself and that your stakeholders can be asking as you develop that infrastructure and that culture. So some of the things to be thinking about, like, just some of the questions: does the space feel appropriate for all ages, all abilities? That's something that you'll hear more and more about. Is the area feel low stress? So for newer or lower confidence riders, does that area feel safe for them, or does it feel comfortable? And is it connected to useful destinations? We find that there's this balancing act, if you will, between recreational use and transportation of trails, bike lanes, quiet neighborhood streets. And we believe that you can do both. We believe that as you design and build that infrastructure, that it can be used for recreational purposes, but it can also be useful for transportation and getting people to school, getting people to work, getting to the coffee shop, getting to the grocery store. We believe that it can do both. And so some critical questions to think about there. On the culture side, again, we want to develop a welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging culture. And there's some, again, some critical questions that you can be asking yourself as you're looking to build that culture. And what we find, again, just to restate, is it's really that balance as you develop a connected community. It's really the balance between safe, comfortable, connected infrastructure, and then also developing a culture that's welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging, if you will. So we talked a little bit, just in terms of a recap, we talked about some of the ways that a community might approach. We kind of developed this called the Connected Community Roadmap, starting with developing a vision. It's important that as you begin to invest further into the infrastructure and that you're really wanting to encourage more people to walk and bike, that you have a vision for that. Understanding what does success look like, what's the impact that we're looking for, and this is really customized for each context and each particular community. Developing the why, and then early kind of rallying the support. That next stage, if you will, is about planning the network, understanding equity and access, all ages, all abilities. That means as we develop infrastructure, that it's infrastructure that's actually comfortable and safe for people of all ages, all abilities, that we really focus on the policy side and that we have an intentional and strategic outreach. And then we want to build the culture. And there's programming that can happen. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And there's some ways that we can really build the culture around that to make it welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging. And then finally, sometimes the hardest side of this is the implementation. So how do we actually not just stay in a planning phase and buffering around planning? We think we want to do some stuff, but actually get some stuff done. And so prioritizing, figuring out the maintenance side, how are we going to fund this, and coming up with approaches that kind of have both a public and private funding mechanism, if you will, for some of these things. And then ultimately, how do we evaluate it? So that's the Connected Community Roadmap. Again, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list of every step that you can take, but really just present an overview of some things to be thinking about, if you will. So we did talk a little bit, actually spent quite a bit of time on infrastructure and looked at some of the tools that are available to you in your toolbox as you build out a broader network. Things like shared use paved paths, which are typically paved and 10 feet wide. They can be adjacent to the road as a side path or completely off-road. We talked a lot about bike lanes and how those can be applied, and some of the uses and benefits of bike lanes and where those can benefit the community. We talked about quiet residential streets and then some of the traffic calming that can help build out that broader network. We didn't get a chance to talk about the natural surface trails. This is obviously much more of a recreational focus, although in Bentonville, Arkansas, where we live, some of our natural surface trails also serve as transportation as well. You talk about a fun ride to school, being able to ride a mountain bike trail from your house to school is a pretty good way to start the day. And so some of our mountain bike trails are actually serving as transportation corridors as well. So again, as we think about redevelopment, revitalization of brownfields and areas, be thinking about ways that you can include natural surface trail systems. There's a couple examples here that you can research on your own. I'm sure you have those in your community, or that there's a desire for some of those in your community, but all about building that active lifestyle, ways for people to connect with each other, connect with nature. Mountain bike trail systems, natural surface trail systems serve an important role in that. The Rail Yard Bike Park in Rogers, Arkansas is a great example. And then two quick photos from Durango Mesa Park out of Durango, Colorado. You can kind of research those on your own and see some of the things that are happening there, and how those are strategically located near town centers. So it's not a 45-minute drive to get to the Durango Mesa from Durango, Colorado. It's more of like a couple miles from downtown. And then the Rail Yard Bike Park in Rogers, Arkansas is strategically located in the downtown area. So you can go grab a coffee, grab some tacos, grab some pizza. You might live a couple blocks from here, but it's really close and adjacent. And then is also connected to about 10 to 12 miles of mountain bike trails as well. So let's drop down a little bit and talk about culture. The three areas that we really want to focus on in building out a culture for active transportation is developing a welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging culture for people on foot and on bike. And I want to talk about maybe just a couple ways that you might consider doing this, some things that we've learned over the years that you might want to apply. So let's look at this welcoming aspect. As you think about your community, and as you begin to start planning your network, wanting to get more people on foot and on bike, it's really important, as I know many of you fully understand, how important it is to hear from the community and hear what their needs are, what are their challenges, and be okay with those that don't agree with some of those investments, and have that opportunity to really interface one-on-one to try to understand what might be the opportunities, what might be the objections. This is a project that we worked on in a city here in Northwest Arkansas. And this was just a couple quick examples. The far left, or bottom left slide or photo is, as Leslie mentioned, setting up at a farmer's market. It's a great opportunity. And there's some things here that you might learn as a community leader and a stakeholder in gaining feedback, is going to where the people are. Not necessarily inviting them to come to you, but really digging in and finding where are the people and where can we get the most feedback from a broad and diverse group of people. So farmers market, that was fantastic. We had the opportunity to, buy some banana bread from the other vendor, grab some coffee, interface with some of the other vendors, and then had an opportunity to hear from a broad cross section of the community. The other three slides were really, we were invited to a church. This church, I think a couple times a month, they have a free community meal, and people that from across the community who many of those folks are relying on walking and biking to get to work, to get to school, to get to the doctor's office, the bank. And so we had an opportunity to go to this community meal, and so it was the first time that on a public project that I'd been asked to say a prayer over the meal before the big meal, and that was a real honor to be able to do that, and really just meeting people where they're at. And so as you think about developing a welcoming culture, it's really important that you go and we kind of take off our planners hats. Sometimes we take off our city official hats, and we just become a person. And we have a kind of a format and an agenda. Of course, it needs to have some structure to it, but we're actually going to the people and getting their feedback, if you will. As we think about developing an inclusive culture, again, it's about reaching out and developing opportunities for many people from lots of backgrounds to get involved. And I've got just a couple quick examples of that. Northwest Arkansas, so Bentonville, Arkansas, we have about 400 miles of what we consider world-class mountain biking trails scattered across across two counties here in the northwest corner of Arkansas. And what we were finding, not me, but what many people in the community were facing was that, let's just call it like it is, that traditionally, mountain biking has been a very male-dominated sport, if you will. And as our infrastructure and our trails and the miles of trails really grew, there was an important part of the community. The Women of Oz really filled a void for women who wanted to be a part of biking, but didn't necessarily feel at home in a group ride with 95% men. And so the Women of Oz has really created a program that's really targeted women and really focused on women who may not have ever mountain biked before, but they created kind of a safe space and a place for women to learn and to connect. And I think they've grown, over 500 members now, have full-time staff that's really managing programs and rides and giving back to the community and really creating an inclusive environment in our mountain biking community for women. Two more quick examples. Similar to Women of Oz is on the far right in the photo is Olivia Barraza, and she founded Arkansas Latinas in BC. And what she found is that in biking, she often felt kind of out of place, or that there wasn't really a place for her in her community. And so she developed Arkansas Latinas in BC and has a whole suite of programming and rides and things like that, and teaching people to ride that really targets the Latina community, and has been a huge success here in Northwest Arkansas. So again, building that culture, reaching out to those who aren't riding every day, who that's not necessarily part of what they do, and how they've woven that into their lives, and creating spaces for people to do that. So Latinas in BC has been really great in building culture. One more notable out of Detroit is the Slow Roll program. And this has been a huge success. And I would say for your community, this is another one that you might want to do some research on and find out more about how we can do something similar. It doesn't necessarily have to be branded under the Slow Roll trademark, but you can do something similar in your community. And that's essentially just organize some rides in your community. And those rides can be 1 to 2 miles and very family oriented for newer riders, to give people that opportunity to enroll and engage in that riding community. And Slow Roll has been fantastic, was founded out of Detroit, Michigan, and has had a lot of success in building culture there around biking in Detroit. And then finally is encouraging. And the encouraging is, again, some of the things that can happen when you grow a biking community is sometimes as you grow that biking community, some people can feel left out. Sometimes I'll show up to a ride here in Northwest Arkansas, and some of the folks will have a $10,000 bike and another couple $1,000s in helmet and gear and shoes and all of that. And I'll show up to a ride and kind of like, I don't have all of that. And so creating a space that we can encourage people to ride. And we came up with, actually through one of our academies, we came up with a saying that any bike is better than no bike any day. And so when you're riding, don't really focus on having like high specialized gear. Bikes can be expensive, gear can be expensive. And so we just want you to show up, and we want to create spaces and places that you can engage with and show up. If you've got a beach cruiser, we want you out there. If you've got a $10,000 e-bike and you do enduro racing, there's a space for you as well. But this whole idea of creating an encouraging environment is very important in this area of culture building. Also, another program that you might consider is called Slow Streets. So you may have done this in your community. You may have heard about this before, but it's an intentional focus to use existing city streets, add some additional signage, some programming, and maybe have once a quarter, once a month, once a week. Really, it just depends on what you want to do and what works within your community to develop a route, if you will, where it's really low volume of traffic, low speeds, and then those roads are incorporated for people walking and biking. And so there's some different programming that can happen. So in Northwest Arkansas, there is an effort called Slow Streets Northwest Arkansas, where different cities will have different programming that happens and signage and things like that, which really allows people to utilize those streets beyond just for vehicle usage. So let me just pause for just a moment. And we have 34 people on the call, so I won't just open this up broadly. But as you think about the balance between infrastructure and culture in your community, you don't have to give any specifics, but what might be some of either the challenges or the opportunities that you see in your community to build either more safe, comfortable, connected infrastructure, or building that welcoming, inclusive, and encouraging culture? You can just put that in the chat. So we'll take just a minute to see if anybody has a desire to post anything there. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, or even opportunities that you're facing in growing infrastructure or culture in your community? This is where I would typically cue some elevator music. Okay, connecting all neighborhoods. That's right. Yeah, often that's a good point. Oftentimes we find that newer development might have embraced this, might have included bike lanes, or might have included slow streets or traffic calming efforts where it's more conducive, but really finding a way to create connectivity across all neighborhoods. That's good. Anybody else? Any other thoughts on challenges or opportunities related to building more infrastructure or building more culture? Yeah. Okay. So finding land closer to development where it would be safe. Okay. So Rich, were you thinking that would be more like the natural surface trails or mountain bike trails? Or are you thinking that more like the paved trails, more of the transportation network, active transportation network? Okay, good. Well, not to be Captain Obvious here, but with brownfields, that's something that in your community you might be finding that that particular parcel, that particular property has seen no development for the last 40 years because of something. Maybe some people in the community know why, but others don't. But there's that large parcel that may have some environmental concerns. And so the Brownfields program is a great way to reactivate and redevelop and revitalize some of those parcels that may have gone undeveloped over the years. So, yeah, good feedback. Thanks for the questions there. Leslie, let's do a quick time check. How are we doing on time?
We're at 11, I'd say. Let's maybe 10 more minutes.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, I want to take just a moment, and we'll skim through this really quickly. I want to talk a little bit about Northwest Arkansas and how Northwest Arkansas has embraced active transportation and biking. So Northwest Arkansas is we'll use this as just a really light case study here. Northwest Arkansas is a somewhat of a linear community, if you will. There's two counties, Benton County in the north, Washington County in the south. We have the home of Walmart in the north in Bentonville. Walmart just wrapped up a complete rebuild of their new campus, which is absolutely stunning. They have intentionally routed the Razorback Regional Greenway, which is a 40-mile ribbon, intentionally routed that through their campus. They also have natural surface trails on their campus as well. So Northwest Arkansas, kind of Walmart in the north, University of Arkansas in the south, go Razorbacks, and then 31 different municipalities in Northwest Arkansas, with 25 of those having 1,000 people or more. So there's a lot of challenges there in a region like this of about 500,000 people, where there's significant growth. In the next 20 years, we'll be at 1 million people. That's what the projections are showing. And so Northwest Arkansas really had this desire to really connect the broader community, to connect north to south. And so they went and tackled a large planning process, went and applied for at the time, which was the federal Tiger II money, and received a federal grant to build the Razorback Regional Greenway. And that's over here on the right-hand side in the photo. It's at present, it's a 40-mile completely off-road. Most, I would say probably 95% of that is at least a 10 to 12 foot wide shared use paved path that connects from mile 0 in the south all the way up to mile 40 in Bella Vista, Arkansas. And it's been a huge success for us. And there was intentionality in the routing of that particular project to make sure that it took in several of the traditional downtowns or historic downtowns. And it's helped breathe new life into many of those downtowns. I would say downtown Springdale, Arkansas has probably seen the most exponential growth and change and revitalization as a result of the Razorback Regional Greenway. Downtown Springdale went from kind of a sleepy downtown that if you weren't from Springdale, there weren't a lot of options for eating. There weren't a lot of retail options, although there were some scrappy restaurants and retail folks that had done a great job over the years. But when the Greenway was intentionally routed through downtown Springdale, it brought and breathed new life into that area. You can see some of the photos here. They have a whole downtown Springdale alliance now with a staff that's doing programming. And a lot of that programming is focused on the Greenway, Razorback Regional Greenway, and people that are on foot and on bike kind of coming through downtown. They've done new projects such as the daylighting of Spring Creek, and just really creating this environment that's much more inviting, that's really focused on the Razorback Regional Greenway. So when the Greenway was built, we were getting letters to the editor and calls into the local radio shows. Why are we building a 10 to 12 foot wide sidewalk for 40 miles? That's useless. And so that was the early days, 2010, 2011. The project was completed and really served as a catalyst for a lot of the other growth and a lot of the other infrastructure and the culture that we see in Northwest Arkansas. And we started showing up in a lot of different places that were unexpected. You know, a progressive urban planning publication, City Lab, is talking about Arkansas, the bike's best friend, and Walmart. We're showing up in Outside Magazine, and we hosted the IMBA, International Mountain Biking Association World Summit in 2016. So we started getting some notoriety, and the Razorback Regional Greenway really served as a bit of a catalyst for that. In the early days, and I'll kind of wrap up on these next couple slides, Leslie. In the early days, as we think about culture, there were, only, I would say, probably 4 to 5 full-time employees that were focused on biking and biking culture and bicycling in Northwest Arkansas in the 2011 timeframe. If we fast forward to today, we have over 100 full-time employees that are focused on either trail development, trail building, Arkansas Latinas in BC, Women of Oz. Pedal It Forward is focused on taking in bikes, rehabbing those bikes, and then gifting those back to people that are in need. And so the culture has really grown to embrace that. Our development patterns have really focused on, developers are saying, look, we know that when we locate next to a greenway, our lease rates go up and our vacancy rates go down. And so they're looking for locations that are, as you see here in this particular slide, modern, walkable apartments and shops. And they're intentionally locating near those things. So biking for us has been a big deal. Recent studies have shown that about $159 million annually is the economic benefit that our region gains through biking. And so our investments in biking, both in the infrastructure and culture, have kind of created this economic development flywheel for us that's been a big boon for us. So Leslie, that we'll stop there. And I think we might have just a few minutes or moments for any questions on some of the topics that we have, or anything that you'd like to ask me related to active transportation. So put that in the chat. We'll take just a minute or two to field those. Questions related to biking, economic development of biking, walking, active transportation, or any other questions? Okay. Well, two things as we, before I transition over to Leslie, and she's going to talk about the evaluation from the two webinars. I'd highly encourage you to take a look at two programs. Number one is the Active Transportation Academy. Obviously, the QR code is there that you can snap. This is our flagship program. I think that we've delivered somewhere around 16 or 17 academies over the last 5 or 6 years. It's a 4-day professional development course that's hosted here in Bentonville, Arkansas. KSU TAB has been very gracious in extending scholarships for this program. And so you can snap that QR code, review some of the qualifications. And as long as you're in, regions 5, 6, 7, 8, you're working or you have some connection to Brownfields, chances are you're gonna get a chance to get approved to come to the academy. And that covers all of the costs of the academy. And the academy, the cost of that is $2,850. And that's all of your accommodations, all of your meals, use of an e-bike, all the facilitation, everything other than you just getting to Bentonville, Arkansas is completely covered by that scholarship if you're approved. So we'd love to host you. We learn a lot. We squeeze a lot into 4 days, and we have a lot of fun in that process as well. So if you want to come to Bentonville, Arkansas, learn from our team and learn how you can build a connected community, go on and snap that QR code and take the step and fill out the application. And we usually follow up pretty quickly on decisions. The other program that we want to talk about is, this is the first time that we've talked about it openly, is our Community Jumpstart program. And the Community Jumpstart program is really designed for communities that they know they want something around active transportation. The whole idea of connected communities is something that's really interesting to them, but they're not exactly sure where to start. And so the Jumpstart program is a really great place, pardon the pun, to start as you're thinking about active transportation, connected communities, and how to build infrastructure and culture. As a part of that Jumpstart program, we host an on-site workshop with your stakeholders, around 20 to 25 people, 2.5-hour workshop, where we'll cover some of the topics that we covered here, but we'll have an opportunity to go much deeper. We follow that up with a walk audit in a designated area within your community. A walk audit is both informative to highlight and assess some of the challenges and opportunities related to bike and pedestrian safety. And then there's also going to be a learning component there for you as well. We provide an online community survey that can go out to your community so you can hear from them on what are the things that they're wanting to see and what are some of the challenges that they can identify from related to active transportation. And then finally, we pull all of that into a detailed report and a scorecard. And it provides you some key action items that you can be taking that are customized based on our time with you that you can implement there in your community. So some things I want you to be aware of: snap that QR code, if you will, take a look at that program. And KSU TAB, again, has been very generous because this is an important part of their work and something that they're aligned with. We have a call for community applications. And so when you apply, we'll meet with you. We'll spend about 30 minutes with you, kind of determining if this is a fit. And if everything aligns, then KSU TAB will cover the cost of that Jumpstart program within your community. Please note the deadline of March 15th. We need to receive all applications by March 15th. And KSU TAB will be involved, but then our team will be helping kind of schedule meetings and that sort of thing. So go check that out. Active Transportation Academy. Come see us in Bentonville, Arkansas. The Jumpstart program, if you want us to come to you, KSU TAB has provided a way to do that. So Leslie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's see, make sure I still have control. All right, and got all the pets with me today. So, all right. So we're gonna wrap up. Real quick before we do, I would really appreciate if you guys could snap this QR code and let us know what you thought of today's webinar. Again, like Ryan said, we're here taking up an hour and a half of your time. And we really want to make sure that the content we're providing you is useful, that you're learning from it. And these evaluations can help us improve that to make sure that we're utilizing your time as best as possible. So I'm just going to take maybe a minute long pause, let you guys snap that QR code and fill it out. It's a really short just a few simple questions, but we'll take a quick pause while you guys do that, and then we'll open it up to questions. And then while you are doing that, Hannah, since it looks like if you take out KSU TAB staff, I think we only got about 20 people left on the call. So I'm fine if we're able to unmute folks if they want to actually ask their question out loud as opposed to through the chat.
Is this the section of the presentation called Grill the Partner with really, really hard, detailed questions about active transportation design?
Yeah, if people want to grill you on that, that's more than welcome. Okay. So I think, please continue filling that out if you haven't completed it. But if anyone has questions, see if you're able to unmute yourself and you can, yeah, all right. So we've confirmed everyone should be able to unmute themselves. If you want to ask a question, feel free to. We've still got, about 14 more minutes left. So feel free to use it if you want. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, I think we'll give everyone a little bit of time back today. We really want to thank you for participating. If you do have any questions in the future, feel free to email or call us. We're happy to help you out. So with that, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.